Good morning, guys. We're trying something a little different this morning. It is such a beautiful morning. I decided to come out here and talk to you guys out on the front porch just enjoying this awesome day. Nice breeze is blowing. It's a good day. So we're gonna jump right in. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you got to do the things you needed to do. I hope you accomplished much, but I'll also hope that you're rested, because sometimes the best way to accomplish things is to rest in the Lord. I hope you took a Sabbath. Anyway, as we begin to delve into 1 Peter again, we're gonna delve into a section that starts out with words, with a word that we normally don't like, and we usually put into a negative spin in our understanding. But let me just read it. I will probably read 1 through 7 is what I'm going to read today. We are in 1 Peter chapter 3. It says, "In the same way, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands, so that even if some disobey the Christian message, they may be won over without a message by the way their wives live. When they observe your pure, reverent life, your beauty should not consist of outward things like elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold ornaments or fine linen. Instead, it should consist of what is inside the heart, with the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is very valuable in God's eyes. For in the past, the holy women who put their hope in God also beautied themselves in this way, submitting to their own husbands, just as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. You have become her children when you do what is good and are not frightened by anything alarming. Husbands, in the same way, live with your wives with the understanding of their weaker nature, yet showing them honor as co-heirs of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered." So your prayers will not be hindered. So when we begin to really look at this, it starts with the word submit. And it seems like, especially when we're talking about the relationship between a husband and a wife, and we use these words submit, we find that there's a lot of people that get really upset about this because we misunderstand the word submit. So in Ephesians, when it's talking about husbands and wives, it starts out that whole passage by saying, submit to one another in love. In other words, so the husband and wife are coming together as one flesh, according to what God has desired. And to be honest with you, any relationships that we come into should have some of these same qualities. Obviously, with the husband and wife, it's more intimate. You live together. There's more chances for aggravation, those kind of things. But really, the qualities that are mentioned here should be kind of thrown in a little bit with any relationship that we have. The other thing that I want to say right off the bat is in verse 7, it says husbands in the same way, and then he adds something else. So we want to just say there's been teachings on these things that say this is how it's supposed to be, and husbands, you're to lord over your wife, and that's just not what I see in Scripture at all. I think there is a beauty in submission, but this is how it works. For me to understand this is when I submit to God, and I'm just going to talk about Marcia and I. When I submit to God, when she sees me submitting to His plan, when she sees me asking for His guidance, when she sees me doing all that, then she knows that I'm listening, and therefore that causes her to I don't want to use the word submit, but kind of follow that path in which God is showing me. But at the same time, God also has her on her own path. And there are times when God's asking her for something and needing to do something, and I need to submit to that understanding as well, because we become together. And the most beautiful thing is that as we look at this passage of Scripture, it says that there are going to be times maybe when we want to go down a path that God isn't calling us. And in this actual Scripture, it says, the way we react to things can give the message of God without a message, right? In other words, it can bring someone back into the understanding of God because they see the way that we're acting. We're reaching out in grace and in mercy and in love, and we are, and we're we're doing the best we can in those areas, and all of a sudden they see that people around us. This is why this quality is so important in any relationship, because in any relationship that we get into, friendships, anything like that, we need to respond in this way. And then it keeps going. It talks about the beauty that shouldn't be on the outward. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't look good and you shouldn't have, you know, hairstyles or whatever. Again, we could take this completely the wrong way. What it's saying is, let's work on what's on the inside of us. That is where our true beauty begins. It's on the inside. And if we could understand that, and that is allow God to come in and just begin to clean up the inside, if you will, then all of a sudden, then that's where the true beauty comes in. It doesn't matter what's happening on the outside. You know, I see that in marriages that have been married a long time. You know, they've changed over the years. They don't look like they used to look. But when you talk to them, this doesn't matter, because they've really learned to see what's on the inside. They really begin to one another. They look and they say, oh man, this is on the inside. And so that begins that understanding. And in verse 4, it says, you know, what we need to have is the inside of us with an imperishable quality of gentle and quiet spirit. Do you know what? I don't believe that's just relating to women. I believe that needs to happen in all relationships that we have. Even men, we need to have a gentle and quiet spirit. Because sometimes there are times when he calls us to be bold, and there's sometimes when he calls us to be warriors. But he calls not just men, he calls women to be warriors as well. And so there are times, though, that we need to understand this quiet and gentle spirit, especially when we're dealing with relationships, because it's so easy of us to run over people. Some of us have personalities that we just want to run over people instead of having that quiet and gentle spirit. And I love how it says, which this is so valuable in God's eyes, right? I love that. And then it talks about how women of the past have clothed themselves with this inner beauty, and that caused them to submit to their own husbands. And I used Sarah and Abraham, and I've looked at that relationship before, and you know, God asked him to move and go somewhere that he didn't know he was going, and Sarah followed. But I think she saw him seeking after God, after this God that they didn't know. And then down the road, when Abraham makes mistakes, Sarah, you know, she goes. But Sarah made her mistakes, and understanding that whole relationship, it's bringing us back to understanding that that we are just growing in him, and our relationship should just, what we're doing as in our relationships are we're spurring one another on for the glory of God. We are championing one another. We are lifting and building one another up. We're not tearing down. I mean, see, so this is not just, there's some valuable lessons in this, even when it, yes, it definitely with husband and wives, but in any relationship that we find ourselves, just a reminder that we are children, and when we do what is good, and we don't have to be frightened or alarmed by anything, because we're walking in what he wants us to do. And then I want to close with this understanding. It says, husbands, in the same way live with your wives. So as we just talked in those understanding, but talk about and understand their weaker nature, showing them honor as co-heirs of the grace of life. I don't, you know, we can read this completely the wrong way. I believe, just to be honest, is that a lot of times it's in the physical nature, the differences between men and women, and you know, with my wife, she always reminds me, you know, hey, we're gonna go outside and do this, let's work together, and and she's like, I'm the weaker vessel. You know, it's that understanding of saying, you know, I think in our society we've lost the identity of roles sometimes, and so at least in my wife and I's relationship, the heavy lifting I do. And I don't mind doing it, and I do it to serve her, and it's being the gentleman, I guess, is what I understand as to stand by. Like, you know, you're the guy that puts the coat over the puddle, and those kind of things. And I think that's what it's meaning. I'm not a believer that says, well, women are just weak. I don't believe that. I come from a long line in my family of strong women, and so it really becomes to just the understanding of let's play our roles and let's be who Jesus called us to be, and let's love one another in this way. This is just a perfect and an understanding. I know I'm going a little long. This is a hard subject to talk about in under 10 minutes, but just to let you guys know, this is, to me, when we walk in this way, I think you have long relationships. So again, you can apply this to husband and wives for sure, but also grab these golden nuggets of how we're supposed to treat one another, and I think relationships become valuable, and I believe that it is what it is. And so, guys, I love you to pieces. Thank you for joining me outside. We might do this again as long as it stays cool in the morning. But guys, have a great week. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.